Hey, Grampian Nation. Today you're going to meet a marketing firecracker, a millennial lady who is working from home running a marketing powerhouse for a national organization. Stand by.
In 2013, I coined the name Grampian, and I gave it to your host, Jim Tracy.
Hey, Grampian Nation. Welcome back. Today our guest is Chloe Anagnos. She is a digital marketing powerhouse. She is a millennial, kind of a conservative, and she, from her home, runs the national marketing for America's future. We're going to talk more about that. But first, Chloe, welcome to the Grampian. How are you?
I am well. Thank you so much for having me, Jim.
Oh, it's our honor, our pleasure. So, I was going to bop right into life story, but I have a little bit of a background that because I have some cousins, and they're on my mom's side of the family, and they describe themselves as Greek American. And I'm like, but wait a minute, I'm an American of Irish descent, so I'm an American first. They're like, well, when you're Greek, it's a different story.
Yeah.
Is this factual or are they blowing smoke?
No, it is factual. So with anyone who says that they're a Greek American or in the Eastern Orthodox Church, so that would be your Russians, your Greeks, your Serbians, maybe your Albanians, that kind of culture, I think, comes first because to many Americans, it's faith, family, and country, right? So
Uh-huh.
that is how I describe myself as well as a Greek American. Even though my family has been here now for two generations, I very much describe myself as hey, I'm second generation Greek American. But that's that cultural component of the Eastern
Mm.
Orthodox Church. You've got the language, you've got the very specific customs, so you get a little bit of taste of the Balkans whenever you're in an Eastern Orthodox church for the most part.
There you go. And a little boisterous too, those Greeks are, huh?
Yeah, just a little bit. Just a little
Okay.
loud.
But your great grandparents, because I like to dive, I love history, and history has so many lessons to teach us. Your great grandparents were political prisoners during the communist backed Greek Civil War. And this was what kind of time frame?
So this would have been right after World War II. So
Okay.
after World War II, Greece fell to the communists for
Hmm.
maybe a better part of a decade. I need to double check my timeline. But
Yeah.
my great grandparents basically said, hey, we're not going to join the Communist Party. Forget it.
Yeah.
And so they were thrown in prison. And so my yaya, my grandmother on my dad's side of the family, grew up with her siblings. She would have been probably 6 or 7 years old at the time, but grew up for about 4 or 5 years without her parents because they were in prison. And I was
Yeah.
just telling this story to somebody else the other day. And the prison system, of course, is very different in other countries versus what we do here in the United States, right?
Yeah.
And especially back then. But my yaya and her sisters would take food to my great grandparents every day in the prison. And a lot of times the prison guards would mess with the kids and they would say, well, why are you bringing them food? We're going to kill them today. Why are you bringing them food?
Mm.
We're just going to kill them next week. And so
Yeah.
they were nasty, nasty, nasty and would play these mind games with them. But when talking to my yaya about this, she would often say, yeah, they were bad, but the Nazis were about 10 times worse.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate.
Psyops in prison. Yeah, that's terrible. So they kind of miraculously survived, didn't they?
They survived, and then my grandparents also survived the Nazi occupation of Greece as well,
Wow.
whereas a
Wow.
lot of people didn't. I think the statistic is something that 2 in 10 Greeks died during that time.
Wow. That's
So
huge. That's
that's
huge.
huge.
Um, so then they decided that they were going to make a better life, and they took a boat and they came to America, right?
Yes. So my papu, my late grandfather, moved over first, and he did not meet my grandmother until they were in North America. So when he was about 16, 17 years old, he was sponsored by another relative of ours who lived in Elkhart, Indiana, so about 110 miles east of Chicago.
Yeah.
Came over and got lost actually in Elkhart because he spoke no English. And so he
Yeah.
slept on the street for a few days before he was able to figure out where his uncle was. And then my yaya had a few sisters in the 50s who had immigrated to Montreal, Canada. And they
Hmm.
were working as tailors, seamstresses. and she said, hey, she was like 14 years old, and she said, there's no opportunities here. I'm going to move. So can you
Yeah.
imagine being 14 years old and crossing the Atlantic all by yourself and going
Yeah.
to a country where you know like two or three people? I mean, it's just wild how they
Yeah.
ended up here and how now we're thriving in the greatest country in the world.
Tough, tough people. So this is like an Ellis Island story and a Via Montreal story. Crazy.
Yes. And so
Crazy.
what's even more interesting, Jim, so get this. So my Yaya and Papu were set up by mutual friends. And so in if you've seen the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding, you know Greek women are always scheming, right? Like they
Yeah.
always have something going on. And so my Papu's aunt and my Yaya's aunt, they were in the same wedding for family friends in Boston, Massachusetts. And they said, well, I've got a nephew that I think your niece would really like. They would hit it off. She's beautiful. He's very handsome. They should meet each other, just scheming. They end up setting them up. And my papu says, okay, fine, fine, fine. I'll go meet her. I will go because at the time he was becoming a citizen and he could legally go to Canada. And he said,
Hmm.
okay, I will go to Montreal for 2 weeks. I'll meet her. And, if it works out, we'll go to Boston and get married. Well, they hit it off, and he stayed, I think, an extra week as they were getting their like wedding plans together, and then they got married in 1961 in Boston, Massachusetts.
Wow.
And then
Wow. Wow.
she,
Wow.
not only knowing him, I mean, felt deeply madly in love, moved to Elkhart, Indiana, and got plugged into the Greek community there. So I give a lot of credit to these ancestors of mine who were just, chatting and constantly, oh, well, who can I set so and so up with? Who can I set so and so up with? And my husband jokes with me that I must be very much like them because I'm constantly scheming and trying to set people up. I've not had a lot of matches yet, but I'll get there someday.
All right. So they came over, they got a better life. You get established, you're in Indiana, and then I'm gonna roll over into some work stuff. you joined the Donald Trump campaign in 2016,
I did.
and you were the digital team member of Team Trump. What was that like?
It was pretty wild, as you can imagine. But I tell
Yeah.
any young person or anyone that's interested in campaigns, when a presidential campaign comes knocking, you don't say no, right? And so the story was that I had an internship at the time for the Hamilton County Republican Party. Hamilton County is just a county north of Indianapolis.
Hmm.
And I had a boss at the time who was working on the campaign. Obviously, Mike Pence was the running mate. And so that's how he kind of got plugged into that campaign. And he called me in the summer of 2016 and said, hey, I'm back in town from this thing that I'm working on. I can't tell you what it is. You've babysat for us in the past. Will you come watch my kids? And by the way, are you looking for a new job because I have an opportunity for you? And I said, well, I'm always keeping my options open, but what's the gig? And he said, well, if you're interested, you can come down to San Antonio, Texas with me tomorrow. I can't tell you what the campaign is until we get there, or at least until we get to the airport. Because I said, what is this? Like, this doesn't make any sense. I'm not entirely sure what's going on. And at the time, I thought it was Ted Cruz's campaign because it's
Okay.
Texas. Okay, that kind of makes sense. And so
Yeah.
we get to the airport, and I said, okay, well, what's the deal? What's going on? And he said, this is for the Donald J. Trump campaign. And I said, okay, I'm
Okay
in.
then.
Okay, cool. Like, I guess let's do this, right? So
And how old are you at this point?
I was 22. So I mean, really had just kind of graduated from college. Was like 9 months into my first job out of school at a small marketing firm. And I said to myself, okay, well, I basically walked into the office and already had a job. And they said, hey, we
Yeah.
know you can write. We know you've done a lot of design and whatnot for Republicans in Indiana. We really need someone here on this team. But they said, this is like top secret. No one can know that you're here. You have to sign an NDA. My NDA expired a couple years ago. So now I'm able to talk about what I did.
Uh-huh.
But this was known as Project Alamo, and this team was put together by Jared Kushner. So Brad Parskill was not my boss, but he was my boss's boss at the time. So
Okay.
it was very exhilarating. It was thrilling. It was a place where I was really able to cut my teeth and get a lot of experience very quickly. But it was also very stressful, as I'm sure
Yeah.
anyone who's ever worked on a presidential campaign can tell you. It's 18-hour days, not a lot of pay, but the experience is worth it.
Yeah. So you guys really focused in like a laser beam on small donations, right?
Correct. Yes. So
Yeah.
our main job was to create surveys, petitions, any type of lead magnet through an ad so that we could get people to donate small dollar donations. So then we could in turn take that money and just turn out more ads. So I kind of tell people like, hey, if you ever remember seeing an ad during that time, whether it was on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anywhere, Google ads, I most likely wrote it or wrote a variation of it, which is
Wow.
pretty wild. But at the time, the campaign really only had between 2 to 3 copywriters at a time. So I wrote probably anywhere from 2 to 4,000 words a day.
Wow.
And this was before
And
Chat GPT. So
yeah, exactly. um, so since that point, you kind of became more than just a copywriter. You kind of are a digital marketing maven. Is that accurate?
yeah, that's kind of what I call myself. So I've been very blessed and very fortunate that I have had to just kind of figure it out very quickly in my
Hmm.
career. So I'll have people that will say, "Hey, I need help writing this. I need help launching this product, this platform. I need something changed on my website. Can you do it?" And 9 times out of 10, I normally can. But I will also say that I went to an incredible university, Ball State University, Chirp Chirp in Muncie, Indiana. And we were very much, shameless plug, but we were very much taught how to do a little bit of everything. Whereas
Uh-huh.
a lot of other journalism and media schools will teach you the theory behind something. Well, Ball State will actually give you that hands on experience. So I kind of
Sure.
took that attitude towards, I took that mentality and put it into my work. And anytime there's some new app, TikTok's a really good example. When TikTok came out, I said, I don't want to learn that. That's another app, that's another program. But when I realized that, hey, okay, this is the next big thing, I very quickly put on my big girl hat and said, okay, we're going to learn how to do this because it's going to make a difference. So
Yeah.
that's definitely something I would tell young people now is, hey, if there's something new and cutting edge, figure out how to use it because then you can very quickly become an expert.
If you're not on the leading edge, you're on the trailing edge, especially
Bingo.
these days, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, you put together marketing strategies for people, for businesses, and give us kind of a thumbnail sketch of your ideal client that walks in the door.
So, a lot of times it's going to be someone who is either a business owner, public figure, thought leader, or maybe a campaign or a nonprofit. I will say that campaigns are run very differently from state to state. So, what's going to work in Indiana might not work very well in a place like Rhode Island, might not work in a place like California. So, I kind of will say that with a little bit of a disclaimer. But lately, I've had a lot of people who've come to me who've said, "Hey, I'm a thought leader. I've written all of these articles. I'm working on a book. How do I promote myself and my book without sounding like too salesy?" Right? Like
Yeah.
everyone has that person on their social media timeline that all they do is promote themselves, and it's very annoying, right?
Yeah.
No one wants to be that annoying person. Um, so I do a lot of that and brainstorming different types of content pillars, as they're called, so that you
Hmm.
can promote yourself, you can promote what you do, but you can have a little bit of humor in it. You can, have some variety into what you're talking about. But oftentimes I get people who say, I'm starting from ground zero. I have maybe a Facebook page and that's it. And I need to build an email list. And so I work now with a lot of people to do that very quickly. A lot of
Hmm.
it is just through saying, "Hey, give me access to your Gmail, to your email list, for your personal Gmail, and every single contact that you've gotten there, we're gonna, build you the bike as we're riding it," as I kind of
Yeah.
say. So, if you've got people out there, Jim, or if you yourself don't have an email list, I'm more than happy to help you build that. But one of the things I've noticed in the last few years is that Email is really the only data that you own. So let's say that YouTube goes away tomorrow, Facebook goes away tomorrow. How are you going to be able to communicate with your people so that they know about you, they can still keep in touch? And really, the best way to do that is with email. You can say
Yeah.
that you can do that with texting too, but I find that the email newsletter is not dead, and it's
Yeah.
something that people should use more.
Sure, sure. So, do you have a program that you favor for, say, CMS or for email mass marketing?
So I think it's going to depend on the person. I would say for a lot of authors, podcasters now, the big one is Substack. I cannot tell you the number of people that I have been running into in the last, couple of months because this is conference season for me, so I've been traveling a lot. But I've been telling
Uh-huh.
them, hey, if you are not on Substack, like you need to be on it yesterday because that is the new latest and greatest with email. You can do video podcasting on it now too, which is really
Hmm.
neat. You can do live video. They're really trying to become, I think, the all-in-one for thought leaders, authors, anyone who's got some type of story to share, right?
Sure.
um, the next best one, and this is more so I would say for larger businesses or larger nonprofits is going to be HubSpot. I love HubSpot. It's great. It's very compatible with a lot of other programs. If you're trying to sell tickets to events, you can hook up Eventbrite very easily. Run social media campaigns through it as well, which is great. It is a little pricey. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, so I
Yeah.
don't have a code that I can share with people. But then the next best from there is probably going to be a MailChimp or a Constant Contact. But
Yeah.
if you're just an individual, I would say start with Substack and go from there.
All right. So we have a lot of businesses who listen, a lot of C-suite people, and they always want to have the simple path to social media. There isn't one, is there?
No, unless they have a lot of money, then I can grow you something real fast. But
Yeah.
that's such a hard thing to do because with political campaigns are like the ultimate startup, right? And so I think one of the reasons why a lot of times campaigns spend so much time and effort on getting those low dollar donations and getting those low dollar ads is because they want to build up the email list, the texting list, and their kind of like voter contact database as fast
Hmm.
as possible because you've got a looming deadline, which is election day. People who are
Sure.
in the C suite, it's more of a long term game, right?
Yeah.
And so, if you want to grow very quickly on a LinkedIn, on a Facebook, Instagram, you can do that, but you have to be prepared to spend a lot of time on the platform, or you have to be prepared to spend a lot of money to hire someone like myself who can do that for you. And I often find that if I tell people, like, hey, sometimes these social media folks, their retainers start at $2,000 a month, they don't understand that. They're like, well, how in the world, uh, would content creation start at 2 grand? I mean, name your price, right? But they
Yeah.
just can't believe that it's that expensive. Or they say, well, I thought it would only be $100 a month. It's like, no, 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 no. You are spending all of this time collecting as much content from this person as possible, looking for video interviews. Maybe you have to do photo shoots. Maybe you need to sit in front of a camera. Maybe you have to book podcast interviews for them. I mean, you're just constantly sourcing content and then throwing spaghetti at the wall, seeing what sticks, and repeating that cycle, right?
And
So I think it goes one of two ways: either be prepared to do it yourself and learn very quickly, or write someone a nice big check.
yeah. So how much has video changed the momentum and the direction of what your job entails?
Video has changed everything. And a story I like to tell about the Trump campaign in 2016 was that back in the day, almost 10 years ago, social media was kind of the Wild West. We could run ads. I think back then we still had to have some type of ad disclaimer, but you didn't have to verify your identity. And thus you get into the stories about, well, Russia colluded and this, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So back then, we could run ads as much as we wanted. We could run them for as long as we wanted. But then, when Meta kind of got wind of everything that happened with Donald Trump winning in 2016, they kind of changed a lot of rules for specifically people that do a lot of political marketing. Now, you have to have not only do you have to have the disclaimer, but you have to verify your identity. You have to be in the U.S. And then you also cannot run political ads 6 weeks before an election, which is kind of annoying because that really pigeonholes you into, um,
Another
it,
deadline.
it takes right. It takes away a lot of opportunities. So you basically have to do, work backwards from election day, right?
Sure.
Now, I would say that Facebook algorithms, any type of social media algorithm, they favor video. And you're going to hear that from probably any digital marketing expert out there. But I tell people they're going to favor video, yes, but they favor video that has closed captioning on it. I mean, Jim, when
Yeah.
you're at the airport or at the doctor's office, are you scrolling on Instagram or Facebook watching video with the sound on? Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not, right? You might have your headphones in so you can listen to it, but if you're
Yeah.
out and about, you want to be able to read that video very quickly so you get the gist of what's happening. And that's a mistake that I see a lot of people, companies, businesses, and even politicians that they make, where it's like, hey, you got to make sure that you've got the closed captioning on it. One, because you probably do have people who are hard of hearing deaf that are watching and consuming your content. But on
That's
top
me.
of that, yeah, right. So one, but then on top of that, too, you want to make sure that people can read it very quickly and understand what's going on so that they can interact with your content. If I'm scrolling on Facebook stories or Instagram stories and see that someone's talking and there's no captions, what do? Skip right through it.
Swipe.
Swipe
Yep. Just
immediately,
swipe away.
immediately swipe. So that's
Swipe
just a
away.
little trade secret for everybody listening.
So when you look back at establishing, um, it's an immediate impact that you have to have with the brand name recognition is the candidate's name. You didn't
Mm-hmm.
have that trouble so much with Donald Trump, but you had to reposition that name, didn't you?
Repositioning, yes, but I think more so, and I wasn't necessarily the person that was in a lot of these strategy meetings. This was very much so decided during the primary, right? But I
Hmm.
think the big thing that I noticed from that campaign was that Donald Trump's name, people already recognize it because of his very long career in real estate and media in New York City, right? But I
Yeah.
think the big thing that we focused on more so was the Make America Great Again movement, or the MAGA movement.
Mm, sure.
And I think it's interesting because MAGA in 2016 does not necessarily reflect what MAGA is now in 2025. I think there's been some ebb and flow to it. Back in 2016, it was very much the okay, we got to protect the border, make sure we have manufacturing jobs, make sure Americans are safe. Now, I think it's a little bit more of, hey, we have to make sure that we've got, our borders are secure and we've got to be a world power again. And so it's just been very interesting to see how some of those movements are taken by others for good or for worse, right?
Yeah.
And are taken and are kind of changed. So I think that the big difference between the Clinton campaign and the Trump campaign back then, and I can talk for hours about the differences between the two campaigns, but I don't necessarily think that Hillary Clinton had any type of social movement behind her that was culturally a thing like the MAGA movement.
Yeah. It was an anti-Trump message, was her message.
Yeah, and hey, pick me because I'm better than the other guy doesn't always
Yeah.
work, right? And it goes both ways. I tell Republicans that all the time too.
Sure. Sure. So now you have made a transition. You are the director of marketing for America's Future.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us about America's Future because it's such a cool thing.
It is so fun. So America's Future was founded in 1995 by a group of young people in Washington D.C. who saw that a lot of professional development opportunities went to people who were older than them, and so they said, "Hey, we want to be developed as well. We want to have a space for the people who are maybe a little bit more libertarian, a little bit more independent, who don't necessarily always follow the status quo. We want to have lively debate. We want to have freedom of expression, but we're just not seeing that in a lot of those more established think tanks. So let's just build our own thing." And that's what they did. And so in 2011, we started having chapters across the country. We have a chapter in Indianapolis. We've got some in Phoenix. I mean, just really all across the country that focus on developing that talent for folks in the center right. So we've got different events, different fellowships, and then national membership to kind of give people those skills so that if you want to level up in your career, you can level up in your career. If you want to find, some type of grassroots organizing movement or create a movement in your community, you can do that with us. Or if you're just looking for friends or a date, we're really great people. We're really great people to hang out with, that are just not for the most part not weird, but are just intellectually curious and want to get to know more people in our movement. So I started about 10 years ago as a volunteer, ran the Indianapolis chapter, and then when the position opened up about 4 years ago, I was very grateful to be selected, and I've been here ever since.
All right. But you are a work from home mom
Hmm.
and a proud wife and mother and millennial. So a lot of the talking that I do when I get on stage, I talk about how to bring. I'm a boomer, but I bring X and millennial and now even Zulus and Alphas. Try and bring them together under the umbrella of, hey, we can all get along. From a perspective of millennial, because I have a son who's like at the edge of X, and then I have a daughter who's have multiple kids who are millennials, and then even some Gen Zers, and those are I got a broad spectrum of age group for kids, and the X guy is gonna go, yeah, I'm not a millennial.
Sure.
And the millennials going to say that Gen X is stuck in the mud still, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, what's your perspective of now looking? Now you're like one generation past, but you're looking up at the boomers who are at retirement age. The first Gen Xers just turned 60 this year. You can
Hmm.
imagine. Wow. When you look kind of back and now forward, what differences are you seeing in how you guys are treated in the marketplace?
I think that, well, one thing that's interesting is that I think a lot of older generations don't realize that millennials are not 20 somethings anymore. I mean, the oldest of us are 40, and
Yeah,
then kind of the youngest of us, I want to say, are closer to like 26, 27. So we've been
yeah,
in the workforce for a while now, right?
yeah,
And so I don't always think that it's necessarily fair to say that, oh, well, millennials are ruining this. We've ruined this
yeah,
again. We've ruined this industry because we've just decided that we're not going to do it, right? And I used to write a lot about how millennials have ruined specific industries. So I think I wrote an article once when Airbnb became really popular. I said, "Oh no, look at millennials. We've ruined the hotel industry because we don't want to stay at hotels. We want to stay at Airbnbs." It's the same thing with with taxis. We don't want to use
yeah,
taxis. We want to use Uber or Lyft, right?
yeah,
And so that's one of the things that I've kind of noticed is that, okay, as people start to get a little older, you can't blame all of your problems on millennials now, right?
yeah.
But in that same vein, Gen Z and Gen Alpha cannot necessarily be blaming all of their problems on millennials. So it's this really interesting cycle where I think each generation, and you could probably even say the same about folks 100 years ago, were they all
Yeah,
complaining about people who were older than them, right? I think that young people are always going to complain about old people, older people are always going to complain about young people. But ultimately, I think the one thing that brings generations together now more than ever is the fact that we have technology in our back pocket, right? And the
hmm,
fact that we can learn how to communicate, um, whether that be over a podcast, over a Zoom call, over text messaging. I think we just have to learn how to communicate as best as we can. But I also know that a lot of our Gen Alpha and Gen C friends get anxiety about answering the phone. So
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know how to fix that.
Well, one of the generational phenomenons that I've seen is I have the benefit. My grandpa was born in 1903. My youngest grandchildren still have to be born yet, so we're well over 100 years, 120 years now. Um,
Wild.
but uh, but the silent generation or the greatest generations, you know what they said about the silent generation?
Mm-mm.
Their clothes are funny, they dance funny, and their music's bad.
Yep.
And then the silent generation said about the hippie generation. They said their clothes are bad, their music's bad, and their dancing is bad.
Yeah.
And then I at my generation, the boomers said about the rap and on and on and on. And it goes all the way now to the alphas because their music's terrible They don't dress right,
Yep, and they don't know how to dance or answer a phone.
etc. They can't dance for nothing. Yeah. All right. So you write extensively still, and tell us some of the stuff you write and who you write for.
So I write a lot about economics, culture, and public policy and where they kind of intersect. So I gave a couple of examples about how, okay, how are millennials ruining this? How is this generation ruining or disrupting an industry, right? I think especially during COVID, you saw a lot of cultural shifts, and you see a lot of cultural shifts with younger parents like me who are saying, "Hey, I don't need to take my kids to the grocery store when I have Instant Cart or I have a personal shopper on my phone. I can save myself time and money, and maybe only pay an extra $10 per grocery order, but I can kind of save myself some time that way, right?"
Yeah.
And so I love to write about ways that industries are disrupted and ways that we can make life a little bit easier for younger parents because, as I mentioned, we're in this interesting spot now where we have more technology and more opportunity than ever. And you
Hmm.
kind of see that with like the baby market, right? Like products for kids. I mean, I remember my in laws just being shocked that we had a bassinet that would rock the baby and play white noise and would like respond to the baby. And they're like,
Yeah.
we didn't have any of this stuff 30 years ago when you guys were kids. This is just mind-boggling, right?
Yeah.
But even some of my girlfriends who have older kids, I'll say like, oh well, this is the new latest and greatest, and they're like, I wish I would have had that 5 years ago, six, seven, eight
Sure.
years ago.
Yeah.
So that's another example of an industry that is constantly innovating, right? Because when you have a baby and you're a first time parent, you're just sitting there like, oh my gosh, I need to have all of these things for this baby. The culture is telling me I need this, therefore I must buy it, right?
Yeah.
Um, Now that I'm a little bit older and COVID has passed, I'm married, I have two kids, I have a little bit more worldly perspective, I guess you could say. I've been writing a lot more personal essays over on Substack. That's where folks can find me. A lot of advice for first time managers, and basically just kind of the advice and the lessons that I wish I would have had when I was in my 20s, not really knowing how to make it in the big city of Indianapolis, Indiana, and not really knowing because the world of media and politics is still evolving. It's still very different. And I never knew that my job was an option when I was in college. No one really had like a political digital strategist, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't really a thing.
Yeah.
You'd always have maybe like a comms director, but did you have someone who very specifically had to manage all of these digital channels, right?
Yeah.
So that's the interesting thing is that there are jobs that will probably be a thing in 20 years when my kids are old enough that we haven't even thought of them yet. So that's a little bit of what I'm kind of writing about now.
Sure. So tell us one of the people you write for is the Epoch Times, where you've got a byline.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not the coolest organization?
Oh my goodness, yes, they're so neat. They're really neat. And another one that I really like writing for, and I need to get back into the groove with them is Evie Magazine. I
Mm.
used to write some dating advice for them back when I was young and single, and now I'm neither, right? But
Your
they
husband's
also
probably not going to tolerate much dating advice coming from you, is he?
right. No, not so much. But that's just another thing that is. I was talking to some friends of mine recently, and how our culture has changed so much that dating is even different now.
Mm.
And so there's this, and I probably need to write an op-ed or something about this for the magazine, but there is a generation now of young men who are very nervous and scared to ask out young women when they're out and about. And I'll give you an example. I just got back about 2 weeks ago from the Network of Enlightened Women. They are a conservative networking group for college age ladies. They had their annual retreat in Washington, D.C. We were stuck, the majority of us, at the airport because all of the flights had been grounded because of lightning and thunder. It was awful. And I was sitting next to these two college age gals who were at the conference, and we were talking, and there was a young man that came over and he was sitting across from them. And the one guy and the gal, they hit it off, and they were talking the entire time. They were talking for like 30, 45 minutes nonstop, realized they were on the same flight, had some friends in common. And as they were boarding, and I'm just kind of sitting there listening, just, watching them flirt back and forth and hit it off. And as they're getting up to board, he asked the gal, he says, "Oh, okay, well, what's your seat number?" And she said this. And he said, "Oh, well, I'm this. So I'm, towards the back of the plane." Um, and this would have been the perfect spot for him to say, "Can I get your number so we can, meet up later?" And instead, he just kind of like stood there and wasn't saying anything. And I interrupted and I said, "Hey, this would be a great opportunity for you guys to switch cell phone numbers so that you guys can talk when you're still on the plane." Like, I was being a little facetious. And they
Being Greek.
exchanged, right? Like, they exchanged numbers. And then he was in the first group, so he got on. And I asked the girls, I said, "Do guys just don't know how to ask for numbers anymore?" And they said, "Oh, that's not the thing." I said, "Well, what's the thing?" And they said, "You ask for their Instagram handle now, so you can
Oh
talk to people on
my.
Instagram." I said, "Really?" And they said, "Yeah,
Oh
asking for
my.
numbers is very forward, and you don't do
Hmm.
that anymore." I said, "Well, how are you supposed to date if you're too nervous to ask someone?" Right? Like, isn't that a
Yeah.
strange concept?
Yeah. We used to have to ask for their parents' phone numbers.
You'd ask for the home phone number, and then you'd sit there and you'd
Exactly.
be like shaking, like,
Yeah.
"Hi, may I speak to so and
I
so?"
wonder who's going to pick up the line. This is going to be
And you
terrible.
didn't
Oh,
know because
wow.
there was no such thing as caller ID, right?
Yeah, no kidding. So, you were working from home when COVID began. Is that accurate?
It is, yeah. So I've been a remote employee since probably about 2016, 2017. So
Wow.
going on 10 years now.
So we moved right as COVID started in 2020. And so, and at that point, we're kind of forced to work from home. And I have just fallen in love with it.
Oh,
How
isn't it
about
the
you?
best?
I just think it is the best, but but then there are a lot of people who can't do that anymore. So,
Yeah, well, it's a tough balance. So I, even before COVID, depending on where I was working, I normally would go out to headquarters, or I would go visit or what have you. Once a quarter was kind of
mhm.
my goal, just depending on company finances and whatnot. But then during COVID, I realized, like, man, I really don't have to do my job well. I do my job very well at home when I'm
Mhm.
by myself, but I
Yeah,
also, as you can probably tell, will just talk and talk and talk and talk. So when I do go out now to Washington D.C. or to other conferences, I don't get anything done. It's more of a opportunity for me to have meetings or strategy sessions,
yeah,
or just to bond with team members, because I'll sit there and I'll talk and I'll talk and I'll talk, and I won't get as much work done, right? So I often tell my colleagues, I'm like, "Hey, if you really, need me to get something done, please do not put anything on my calendar, because I'll keep you probably over time, because I'm not used to being in the office. So I'll get all the water cooler talk in a day, right?"
yeah, yeah. So as you move about the country and you travel quite a bit, but you're meeting with people in an age demographic that's kind of saddled in the middle still.
Hmm.
You've got some senior managers, you've got some C-suite people, you've got some middle to lower management, and you're the by and large the labor force. What is it that is challenging to your age demographic about being in the workforce today?
I think one of the toughest parts, and this is just speaking from my own experience, is explaining to people the value of digital media, of social media, and then even just explaining some of the technical reasons why things are done the way that they are done, right? And
Hmm.
so, one of the things that's frustrating, and I'll give you this example, is that there are a lot of groups out there, specifically political groups, that don't understand why they need to have a Facebook page, don't understand why they need to have an updated website, don't understand that people don't want to physically go somewhere, like my daughter's dance studio. I don't understand why I have to physically go there and sign her up for dance class when we have something called the internet. You can
Yeah.
make a Google form and you can do it in 5 minutes, right? So I think that's one thing. And especially, I'm in a more rural part of northern Indianapolis, kind of in the suburbs, and so it's very interesting being someone who has been blessed with many skills and a lot of education around technology, but then I have to work with people and say, like, okay, well, I don't have checks, so is there a way for me to pay you online? Can we do this online? Or do I have to drive all the way to the bank to get this so that I can pay for dance class, right?
Yeah.
That's just one of the things that can be kind of tough. The other thing that I've also found, and this is more in the kind of campaign space, but it's really, I think, anyone who's interested in any type of advocacy issues, is that social media is not the end all be all for whatever it is that you're doing. There's a
Hmm.
reason why in the campaign world we say that doors win wars. If you are not actively door knocking or going out and saying, hey, we're worried about this thing that's happening in the neighborhood, will you sign our petition? You're going to remember the FaceTime if I come up to your door, Jim, more so than if
Yeah.
I comment on your post on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
And then there's also still a large demographic of people who don't use social media. There are more younger people who are coming out and saying, hey, I have some serious privacy concerns. I have serious mental health concerns about
Hmm.
how these tech companies are using my data, are targeting me for ads, they're targeting my children. And so you've got a lot of people that are now starting to opt out of being in a digital space. So
Yeah.
it's a very interesting balance of, okay, I want people to understand how to use technology, but at the same time, I also have to tell them how to, okay, if we're going to pretend it's 1970, you got to pick up the phone and call people, and you've got to go door to door to get things done
Yeah.
sometimes.
And you got to step away from social media. I mean, there's a time and a place where it's appropriate, but it's also one of the easiest in terms of monetary challenges. It's one of the easiest avenues to touch people's lives. You know.
One of the easiest, and one of the things that I love about Substack, and again, they're not, I have no partnership with them, they're not paying me. But one of the things that I love about it is that there are features within Substack where your profile can be easily found. So, for example, if all you're going to write about is family and your grandkids and bird watching or going out on the boat or something, you can
Hmm.
tag your content with those categories so that you're shown up in feeds. So you can
Yeah.
get people in app who you don't even know in real life,
Yeah.
and you can automatically get their email address, which is really neat. You can't necessarily do that on all social media platforms.
All right. So you talk a lot about the art of networking. Um, does that include social media, or you're talking about, because networking to me is person to person, face to face, like work in a room. And that's the way, that's the old school way that I came up doing it. So
Oh, sure.
what does it look like to somebody like you?
So again, where I'm in a spot where I only get to go to conferences a few times a year, especially in the summer. I don't always have time to go down to Indianapolis to go to a conference or to go to any type of big anything because I have two kids under 3. My husband is a part-time legislator, so it's crazy. It's chaos,
Yeah,
right? One thing that I found to be very helpful are groups on LinkedIn, groups on Facebook. There's one that's
sure.
on Facebook called The Rules of Networking. I highly recommend anyone who is a fan of your show, that listens to your show, especially if they're in the center right movement, to join. I mean, there's people from all walks of life, but I found a
Hmm.
lot of friends that way. I found a lot of connections and a lot of opportunities through that specific group. The other thing that I really think that people need to do a better job of doing is that, okay, let's say you go to that conference, you go to that networking event, you make friends there, you got to stay in touch. That's always the hard
Yeah,
part. And I do that through Instagram. And the way that I do it is by, let's say that you and I, Jim, were talking about something and you're talking about, oh, I'm going to go out on the lake, I'm going to go out on the boat, I'm going to go do this. If I see a funny video that reminds me of you, I'll just immediately send it to you and say, hey, oh, I thought of you. Remember we had that conversation about you guys out
yeah,
on your boat and your dog did this, blah, blah, blah. Little things like that to show people that they were thinking of you goes a
yeah,
long way. And
yeah,
especially in this ever, kind of digital world, that's kind of the new thing. Instead of sending postcards, it's kind of like a digital postcard. Like, oh, I
yeah.
saw this funny meme or I saw this funny video. I saw something motivational and it reminded me of your speech. That goes a long way with people.
All right. So, people over policy, it sounds like people over product, people over policy, people over everything. and that has not been lost on your generation. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
All right. So as we look and as we try and land this airplane now, one of the questions that we always ask our guests is, you've lived a big life, even I mean, at your stage, little kids and stuff, but yeah, by any measure, you've already lived a big life. And there is someone who you can point to has impacted you in such a significant way that you just got to give them some props right now. Who would that be? Who helped make you a champion?
Oh man. There are a lot of people, and I don't want to get emotional, but my late Papu really made an impact on me. Um, really miss him a lot. He lived to be 92,
All right,
and
on.
he was stubborn. Oh my goodness, was Nick Anagnos stubborn? He would shuffle in between Pool Tables Plus, so our pool table business, and then the 523 Tap and Grill, even when he was 90. And COVID kind of was his decline. I think, as
Yeah.
we saw with a lot of older people, if they didn't have a purpose and they were stuck indoors, that kind of mentally just really took them downhill. I truly
Hmm.
think that if COVID was not a thing, he probably would still be with us. One, because he was very stubborn, but two, he just was a very pragmatic, boisterous type of person. But he would go back and forth between the pool table business and the restaurant constantly. What's going on? What's going on? Who's doing this? Who's here? What's going on? And he just had that personality that was larger than life, always happy to see his regulars, always happy to chat with his friends. But one of the things that he instilled in me is my work ethic. He believed in working only half days. So that's 6
12
a.m. to
hours.
6 p.m.
Sun up to sundown.
Yep, sun up to sundown. And one of the things I loved about him so much was that he did not let his lack of fluency in English stop him from anything.
Very cool.
So he wanted so badly, and I had the honor of writing his obituary, which is
Mm.
amazing. I'll email it to you, Jim, because one, I'm proud of it, but two, I think it does a very good job of explaining who he was. But when he took over the billiards business from his uncle who sponsored him to move to move from Greece to the United States, he wanted to be an Olhausen pool table distributor, and you had to
Hmm.
have a special license to do that. You had to go back then in the 60s and 70s. You had to go to Chicago and take a written test and explain in the test. You had to say, like, okay, this is how you set up a pool table, this is how you take it down, how you repair it, how you polish it, all of the things. Well,
Yeah.
he went and he said, hey, I can't take your written test because I am not fluent in English enough in order to take it, but can I please show you how to put this pool table together? And can I please show you how to take it apart? And they said, okay, go for it. And he was so precise in his measurements that they gave him his accreditation right on the spot,
Oh, wow.
which is
So cool.
amazing. So
All right.
yeah, he was a
Well, Nick
wonderful
and
man.
Agnos, we want to thank you for all you invested in Chloe.
Thank
And
you.
Chloe, how are people going to get in touch with you after this podcast?
I love to yap, as you can tell. I love to be a resource for people, whether you're looking for an opportunity or a connection or, an event in your city through America's Future. You can find me at Chloe at americasfuture.org. I'm just at Chloe Anagnos on every form of social media, chloeanagnos.com. You can find America's Future, we're americasfuture.org, but we have a lot of fun events coming up this fall. We have our polo event in Newport, Rhode Island on September 27th. So if you are in the area or would like to come for a day of polo and fun and friendship, we'd love to have you.
Polo on horses, equestrian polo?
Equestrian polo, yes. And we're
Wow.
dressing up. It is a punk rock theme this year. So we'll have appetizers, bites, we'll have some speakers. It's going to be a good time.
All right. Hey, one quick question for you. If people thought about America's Future, it sounds to me like it's kind of like a social networking platform for center right professionals. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yes. We're very
So
big
it,
tent. So if you love freedom, I don't care where you are. If you love
yeah,
freedom and the idea of freedom, and we might disagree, that's totally fine. But we
yeah.
want you to be involved. We want you to be part of our network.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks so very much for joining us on the Grampian. We appreciate you, and we're going to be following you on Substack and some other places, it sounds like.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jim. This was wonderful.
All right, our pleasure. Hey, Grampian Nation, let's keep having and working hard on those Grampian-sized dreams. This is Jim. Now I'm out. When you get an opportunity, subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcast.